hello and welcome to this new edition of the Marketing Pod podcast, in which we'll be exploring how changing business attitudes are creating an increased need for influential board-level marketing professionals, something that we want to see ourselves, and also how senior marketers can prepare to both step up and lead their organizations forward in this changed world. So I'm Jodie, co-founder and director of the Marketing Pod, and I'm here with my fellow founder and director, Jen.
Hello.
Jen and I are also joined by Joel Harrison, editor-in-chief at B2B Marketing. Hi, Joel.
Hello.
We've recently enjoyed working with the B2B marketing team on the Evolution to Revolution report, which examines the factors reshaping the role of the CMO in today's B2B businesses. The research behind that report provides the basis for a lot of our conversation today. So if you haven't downloaded it yet, don't worry. We'll let you know how you can get your hands on it later in this podcast. But the first thing that I really want to chip away at are some of the catalysts behind this change. So Joel, as we've already mentioned, the Evolution to Revolution report has provided us with some really important insights into changing business attitudes. In particular, it revealed a significant shift towards B2B organizations becoming more marketing-led, which is great to see. But what, in your view, have been the primary catalysts for this change?
Well, I think it's a mixture of push and pull factors, as these things often are. It's very rare that it's ever one specific thing. So it's a mixture of things. And I think, on the kind of push side, we're kind of seeing marketing's responding to shifting agendas and shifting requirements. And those have been shifting for a while, but they've obviously sped up more recently. And then obviously in kind of pull things, you're seeing things like technology actually allowing marketers to do new things and do things in different ways. There's a combination of those things. And my perspective is kind of driven by, we've been running B2B marketing for 16 years, terrifyingly long amount of time. I've got all the grey hair to prove it. The industry is completely unrecognizable from what it was back then. It's so much more sophisticated, dynamic, but also, and what that means is the kind of confidence and the capability of it come on in absolutely leaps and bounds. So it's kind of incredible how much things have changed and how and in what pace. And I think in terms of obviously more recently in kind of COVID, the impact and the wake of COVID, or the continuing wake of COVID, unfortunately, it's really kind of it's changed. Accelerations, it's continued to accelerate, and it's meant that we've gone from a situation where companies knew they needed to continue to transform, but probably in a kind of loose time frame, to being, it needs to happen yesterday. And that's really fascinating, because it takes away that kind of doubt element, those naysayers, and means that marketing can, or those change agents in the organization, of which marketing is a primary one, can get on with doing that. And also it meant that organizations in a really short period of time wanted to know what customers were thinking, what to do about that. And they looked around and thought, who can we ask? And they thought, well, marketing knows that, funnily enough. So marketing's kind of traction and credibility and relevance in the organization went up dramatically. So whilst COVID's obviously been horrible for lots of people and pretty traumatic, and I'm downplaying that remotely, but it has given those marketers, B2B marketers who played it right, the opportunity to kind of take a significant step forward. And I think we're seeing the whole industry, the whole profession has benefited from this in a strange kind of way if they've seized the opportunity. The challenge is going to be, assuming we do return to something resembling normality, how they kind of continue that trajectory forward.
So do you think then, in that kind of space and world, that where organisations historically used to see sales as the champion of that customer insight, and that's kind of changed now to be much more marketing led, and it's marketing that holds that insight?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was the sales ownership of that conversation was based largely around their ability to drive revenue in the short term. Whereas I think people understanding that there are bigger pictures and there's more data out there, and people need to think longer term. And it was as much a lack of credibility for marketing as it was a genuine credibility and a genuine reliance on sales. And I think what's happening is that it's not that sales is necessarily going down in anyone's estimation, but marketing's come a long way and proven itself. And the picture's changed, and what we need to see and what we need to understand is different now to what it was. It's much richer, and people are starting to understand the level of vision and foresight and viewpoint we need to have is different to what it might have been some years ago.
We've actually seen that trend ourselves, haven't we, Jen? Not only in the shift to, especially recently, the shift to marketing, to kind of turn to marketing and say, actually, our segmentation model, we need to quickly review it. It's always been sales driven, who they go after. And actually, as you kind of said, COVID's accelerated that and kind of made sales shift to the marketing function to say, okay, what is our segmentation approach now? Who should we be targeting at the moment? Which is great, because actually that is a core function of marketing, not sales, to be driving who we're going after. So it's been quite a nice shift to witness.
Absolutely. And some, we've had lots of roundtables. We have a really big leaders network, which is one of our kind of core aspects of our business. And seeing the kind of transformation playing out in that group, some of them have gone to completely different customer bases, and their existing customer bases are no longer viable anymore, at least not in a temporary. So they've had to shift really fast. And the other ones, they've had to kind of reorientate around different products or things like that. So it's required marketing to do a lot of work really hard. So it's really stretched marketers, but I think the ones that have ridden that out have done really well. And those are just the kind of responsive, reactive components. There's also the foresight and the planning and the understanding the future and the potential, where I think that's where marketing can really allow the business to flex its muscles.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a section in the report that summed this up beautifully, I think, and its relevance to the CMO's role, which was that a simple way to separate the past and future CMO is that the first is an expert in marketing and developing the function, but the second is an expert in the customer and growing the company. And growth is obviously massively important. And so I guess the real question is, how do CMOs now move from one to the next to make sure they have the training, the tools, the tech, and the gadgets that they need to now face this new future with all of its new responsibilities? And MarTech is going to be a big part of that, isn't it? It seems inevitable that MarTech will have a crucial role to play in improving the customer experience provided by tomorrow's marketing-led businesses. It has to. But surprisingly, 66% of respondents to the research said that they were experiencing a company-wide lack of understanding on the commercial potential of MarTech, which I personally find bonkers, but it's something that we have been told by our own clients, something that they themselves do want to change. So, Joel, how do you see B2B approaches to MarTech changing over the coming years?
I mean, I'm not surprised that there's a kind of a lack of understanding, but it might be two-way. It might be not understanding it enough, or have expectations which are too high. So that response kind of contains quite a lot of potential nuance and variation. I found it fascinating watching the kind of attitudes to MarTech evolved. And we're going past this gold rush period where, vendors walk along and dangle shiny objects in front of people and they go and spend money on things in an unsustainable fashion, mercifully. And what we're seeing increasing, and I had a call with 3 MOPS, marketing ops professionals last week to start planning our Get Stacked event for next year. This is becoming more and more understanding as an actually critical role in B2B marketing. And some are even shortcutting direct to revenue ops. Those are the really kind of far-sighted ones, probably more in the heartland of the tech sector there. So overall, it's more mature, it's more measured, it's more considered, it's generally better. It's driven by an embedded strategy rather than just being kind of distracted by the latest shiny thing. Although there's still a lot of that that goes on, because vendors are fantastic marketers. They're the best marketers in B2B. We all aspire to being as good as they are. And I think, that's having an impact on how teams are structured, how budgets are organized, the expertise and resources that B2B organizations need in their marketing function and beyond it to deliver that. Also seeing the agency community get involved, people like yourselves, to really understand the opportunity and the necessity to be able to deliver and to talk authoritatively on this, helping brands choose tech, helping them deploy it, and all outsourcing the whole thing, running campaigns and run programming for them so they don't have that hassle involved. And, there are agencies that do all of those things to different degrees. And I think what we're seeing is the paper walls generally between kind of clients and agencies have dissolved. And I think that MarTech has been critical in that because of the need to share expertise and understanding. So in summary, it's a really much more mature, more responsible environment to operate in than it was.
It's a really positive thing to say that it's kind of those walls are coming down, because our relationships with our clients, I think we certainly have seen over the whole kind of COVID period, we have got closer to those clients, we're speaking to them more and more and more, despite not being in the office, and they're obviously not in the office either. But our communication has become kind of so much broader and much more two-way, and we're trying to talk to them about what technology they've got, like how their systems are working, how they can improve things. Our digital team, bless them, they're pretty stacked out at the moment trying to support clients with that. So in some ways, talking about some of the positives of the situation, that is another one really, because we've managed to become sort of much more of a positive support role for clients.
Yeah, and we need that group of trusted people around us who we're going to get on well with and share experiences and share pain and share success with as well. And this isn't about humanizing B2B. It's been a theme that's been running in different guises over a long period of time. But I think it's really brought it home for me in the last 6 months around the role of empathy and people's expectations. I think everyone's quite disappointed if you don't get a random pet intruding itself on your Zoom call every now and again. We all like those moments, don't we? I had my 2-year-old, my 2.5-year-old Zoom bombed me the other day, just walked into opened the door and walked in and that was in the middle of one of our most important conferences of the year. We just expect that to happen these days, and we like it. We know that we're all human, and that applies to our relationships across the board. Those kind of rigid kind of client agency things or however those kind of collaborative relationships work are much more friendly than they were. And I hope that continues.
Oh, definitely. Me too. Absolutely. I think we were all initially so petrified of our children walking in when we were on calls, but now it just feels that that's pretty standard. And I think it's lovely to have that kind of additional dimension to our relationships. They're certainly less formal. We definitely know more about each other now than we did before. And it just shows that we all do have lives, beyond work. And it's quite nice to see that side of everyone. Certainly at the pod, we have a daily team meeting. And on that meeting, we have had pretty much everyone's children and babies at some point. And we've definitely had cats and dogs and rabbits and just about everything else you can think of. But it's lovely. And I think it has managed to keep a connection there between us, which we might have lost when we were all out of the office and working from home. And it has, maintained that personal connection between us. And it's kept us all jolly at the end of the day, which does lead us nicely onto our next question, Joel, because we wanted to just take a minute to consider the necessary skill sets for the future. Kind of beyond having the right tech stack, the report did also identify a range of hard and soft skills that the marketing leaders of 2030 would need. And these range from kind of the obvious strong grasp of the financial side of things and digital knowledge through to a bit more of a growth mindset and compassion and empathy. So what do you think will be the most essential skills for tomorrow's CMO?
I blogged about this. Empathy is just absolutely fundamental right now. And I don't see that as going away. I think it's a shift in our kind of business values and how we engage with members of our own teams and our wider organization and our customer set as well. I think that the kind of rigidity and formality has gone, and there isn't any, sadly, there's no COVID isn't going to go anytime soon. So that's definitely going to define how we operate for, at least into the middle of next year, if not beyond. And I think that's marks a shift, a seismic shift in actually how we behave rather than being a kind of, a here today, gone tomorrow trend. So that's really, really important. And it will continue in some kind of iteration, and it'll be more important than it was. I think that it's marked by the generational shift. And I think people will just expect of the people, beyond my aged generation expect a kind of different style of interaction with your customers and your clients and things like that. But I think just back to what you said earlier on, the biggest shift that I've seen in the 16 years we've been doing B2B marketing is this emergence of commercial leaders who aren't just marketers who've been promoted to beyond their position of irresponsibility, where they were great marketers. So let's get them to manage a function and engage the board, because that's something that can work, but it's a long way from guaranteed. And I think what we're seeing is the emergence now of people who increasingly who have a set of attributes and the right set of attributes, also kind of a profile and a robustness to, and a kind of a stature, I suppose, for want of a better way of putting it, to really kind of look the CSO, the CFO, the CIO, all those people in the eye and be a true peer to them. And they are true business leaders, and they understand marketing, and they have those marketing conversations, but they also understand business, and they have business conversations as well.
It's so nice to see that, though, after working in marketing for such a long time, to actually see it have the recognition and the kind of level of role that it should always have had, really.
Yeah, I think as we kind of as more and more of the segmentation kind of really comes back and is really kind of owned by marketing, and the targeting is owned by marketing, underpinned by value, we're starting to see that credibility and that shift away from marketing being seen as that tactical comms function into something that actually drives value. And it's something that's so long overdue and so lovely to see, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's marketing being able to deliver on its potential is always a wonderful thing, and it has so much potential. And I think we're really going to see so much more of that in the coming years. So I think I really think the industry has never been better placed to deliver real value and offer true potential to individuals within it as well.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. definitely. I think it's actually a really great time to get into B2B marketing. It's a great time to be moving up in the profession, and some of the stats that came from our report are actually really relevant here. So if we just take a quick look at some of those. So 98% of our respondents believe CMOs will be important to or critical in the success of B2B organisations over the next 10 years. And 39% say the CMO role is evolving to include growth responsibilities, which is really interesting and really great news, as it's obviously one of the most important factors. However, 34% said that as an emerging role, the CMO still has to prove themselves to the C-suite, and only a quarter asserted that the CMO has equal influence as other C-suite members. So I guess the next question is, what will it take to overcome these obstacles? You know, how can CMOs prove their worth to the board? They're already facing quite high hurdles, like trying to secure customer loyalty. You know, customers can easily self-educate, they can shop around, they can change suppliers. So how do they become more credible? You know, Joel, what do you think these senior marketing professionals should be doing right now to break down these barriers to success and really just build up their influence in their own organisations?
I think they need to see themselves and position themselves in this leadership role, you know, whether that's kind of overtly in a kind of a, I want to say macho, but that's not really the word I mean, but you know, and just to kind of position themselves as a leader and all of those things that overtly as a leader, or it's more subtly through kind of political kind of operations. They need to understand and paint a vision of what, you know, so operate in that kind of way as a genuine leader, see themselves, believe in themselves as a leader. So belief is part of it, and understand and paint a vision of what marketing can truly do and how to do it and how to get there, kind of a roadmap, how to achieve that. And they need to show what a customer-centric organization looks like and how it behaves and what trajectory they should go on to get there. And also to keep that going, because you're never ever really there. By definition, there always moves on over the, you know, the horizon always carries on. You've got to keep iterating yourself. So, and I do think interesting, you know, looking at the figures from the report and about the people, marketers not necessarily believing in themselves. And I was reading that, and it made me think there's a bit of a kind of hair shirt wearing going on. And I think that marketers, we've got a little bit of an inferiority complex as a profession, as individuals, and I don't think it's necessarily validated or justified. And I think you know, so I don't think marketers should be down onto themselves. And I think if you think of yourselves, if you think of yourself as being a leader, then that's the first step to being one. You know, if you think of yourself as being ineffectual and not as good as the others, then that's risks becoming a fait accompli. So it's definitely a part of the problem. I don't think it's as bad as the stats kind of suggest, perhaps in the report here. But you know, I think back to my point I made earlier on, if marketing can think and act like a commercial engine for the business, speak the language of the business at the right time and the language of marketing when it's appropriate, they will convince the doubters. And I think the doubters are probably an endangered species anyway. I think that those opinions are increasingly no longer valid or based on reality.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think going back to the whole kind of sales versus marketing argument that you used to see, where sales were the kind of the powerful dominant party, it's just not the case anymore. And you know, personally, I think that's really lovely to see that change.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a real, it's so gratifying. I know you guys have been in the industry a long time as well. I do, to see it kind of start to achieve this potential that it's had. And I think this, you know, the sky's the limit.
Super. Do you think that CMOs need to, or future CMOs need to market themselves better then? Yeah,
I think market is probably in the broadest sense of the word is the right word, but it's just about having the vision and delivering on it and operating in the right ways as much part of it. And I think if you're a salesperson, this is one of the problems. If you're a salesperson, by definition, you're kind of hungrier. And they kind of, even if it's in quite a self-centered short-term kind of way, that's why they tend to get on really faster, as marketing is a bit more reflective. And I think that marketing probably needs to borrow a bit of that hunger from sales.
Brilliant. Thanks, Joel. I have just one final question, if that's okay, which is of particular interest to us here at the pod, and it would be great to get your perspective on it. So 10 years from now, what do you think the role of marketing agencies will be? What will it have evolved into, do you think, by 2030?
What marketing will always need ideas and inspiration. And I think that even though there's a push towards, there has been a push towards insourcing, which I think has probably slowed down quite a lot as a consequence of COVID. And these kind of the model, I won't mention any names, but agencies that run in-house teams, even though there's been a push towards that, I don't think you can't replace the kind of powerhouse of ideas that a good agency is, or even a bad agency, even a moderate agency can deliver things that clients are not as good at doing. And I think that there will always be a role for agencies in doing that and bringing that creativity, providing a different perspective, and critiquing on a strategic basis as well. Because you don't get that. I was talking to somebody asking me about appointing an agency recently, and it's actually a company run by a friend of mine, and I don't think they got the strategy worked out. And I've said, this is why you should be employing an agency rather than a freelancer, because an agency will critique you, will really push you hard on what you're trying to achieve. So, seeing things like AI come in, but in some ways, what it's doing is I don't see that as replacing agencies, because human inspiration is a wonderful thing. And until the machines actually take over the world, and I don't see that happening, there'll be need for this powerhouse, and it will shift and adapt into how it works and how it integrates and how it dovetails. But the fundamentals of it, I believe, will be as relevant as long as economies require us to sell things to other businesses.
I couldn't agree more. And I think AI is fascinating, but it cannot work without human creativity behind it. And AI will ultimately free up humans to be more creative. It's a great opportunity.
So, yeah, it's good. It's good. Exciting times.
It is. It's an exciting time for B2B marketing, and we feel so fortunate to be part of it. Well, on that note, on that nice positive note, I think it's time to wrap up. So, just to say thank you so much, Joel, for coming in and sharing your wisdom with us. We have really enjoyed talking to you.
Well, thank you very much for giving us the project to work on. We're very grateful for that, and thank you for inviting me the opportunity to come and talk about it and generally spout nonsense about it as well. So I'm very, very, very always happy to do that.
Oh, well, we have really loved having you. And as Jodie mentioned at the beginning, there is a new report which our teams have worked on together, which covers in more depth some of the topics we've talked about today. It's called The Evolution to Revolution, How COVID-19 and Behavioural Trends Will Shape the Role of the CMO, Causing a Seismic Shift Towards Marketing-Led Organisations by 2030. It's a long title, I know, but there is a lot to say.
Absolutely. We found it fascinating to work on, and hopefully everyone listening will give it a read and find it fascinating too. You can download it by following the link in the bio for this podcast, and you'll also find it in the resources section of our website, which is themarketingpod.co.uk.
So it just really remains for us to say thank you so much to everyone listening, and if you have any questions at all, please do get in touch, and we are always happy to hear from you. Thanks so much.